Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and this week's plant of the week is Ceropegia woodii Variegata. You might also see this houseplant listed as Ceropegia linearis subspecies woodii Variegata, but obviously I'm going to refer to this as the former today. So this is the variegated version of the regular Ceropegia woodii that sports this coveted pink hue, but of course this requires a lot of light to hold on to this pink color. And the common name for this houseplant is going to be string of hearts, hearts entangled, rosary vines, another one you're going to see pretty often. I personally like string of hearts. I think it says everything it has to say, but as I mentioned, this is the variegated version. And regular string of hearts is one of my OG houseplants. It's one of my favorites that I've had for years. I actually don't have a plain specimen in my home anymore, although there is plenty of reverted plain ones on here that I could totally make my own pot out of, but that's besides the point. So this is a houseplant that I've been very fond of for a couple of years, so I'm very excited to talk about it today. So this just started out as a tiny little plant, as just a couple of cuttings that I purchased as a gift to myself back when I first got hired at the plant store. So I have had this thing for probably about 3 years at this point, maybe a little bit longer than that. And you can see how much it's grown. In fact, I have cut this thing back quite a bit, and you can see just how full it is. Of course, mind you, it's put up with some neglect from me, so I'm sure there's some sparse bits here or there, but that's what I really love about this houseplant, is it totally thrives on neglect, which is something that fits me like a glove, because I can be pretty lackadaisical with my houseplants, especially if they are hanging up somewhere in my home out of sight, out of mind. So this falls into that category 100%. So this is a houseplant that really thrives on bright sunlight. I was originally growing this in west and south facing windows in my past homes, but in my current home I only have east facing windows, but that's been performing quite nicely. My east facing windows are pretty unobstructed, so they do get some really good light, enough to hold on to the pink color. However, this pink color that was on this houseplant was absolutely vibrant when I had it in south facing windows. So if your string of hearts is lacking pink color and you want more of that pink sun stressing, put it in the brightest window you got or closest to the brightest grow light that you got. More light is key to get these things to look nice and pink and exactly how you like to see them on social media. One thing I do want to mention too is you might notice on mine that the hearts are coming in much smaller than you might see. I'm pretty sure that has something to do with lack of fertilization, as I have potted this up. Like I said, about 3 years ago, I've left it in the same planter and have not fertilized it. I have known Ceropegias to be light feeders when it comes to fertilizing, so I wouldn't imagine myself fertilizing this more than like once or twice a year, 3 times max if I'm going crazy, but that is something I will absolutely have to do for this plant, if not repot it in some fresh soil this upcoming spring, as clearly this thing is in need of a little bit of love, let's put it that way. But besides that, I think it looks great. Watering this houseplant is super easy. The only way you can kill this houseplant, I would say, is by watering it too much. I probably go ahead and give my Ceropegias a good soaking, I'd say, depending on the pot size, of course, but this one I'm probably giving a really good watering like every 10 days. So I am letting this thing get bone dry before I go ahead and water it. I think that's the key. You can use my taco test if you were familiar, where you can just grab one of the leaves and kind of give it a squeeze as if you're folding it up like a taco shell. And if these things are well watered, they are going to be very succulent, and upon underwatering or drought, they are going to start to lose that succulence. So once you go ahead and they pass the taco test, you know it's time to go ahead and water. So that's a surefire way to make sure you're not going to overwater your string of hearts, but when in doubt, don't water your string of hearts. I think that's the best tip I have for you. And soil, you definitely want to use a well-draining soil mixture. Like I said, overwatering is the easiest way to kill your string of hearts, so the best way to combat that is by using a well-draining mixture. So I'm just using a standard succulent mixture with a little bit of extra perlite added, but I'd say any mixture that's just got some extra perlite, maybe some sand thrown in there or some charcoal, I think is going to do the deed. It just needs to be a well-draining soil mixture, and I am helping out by using a terracotta planter. As you can see here, a small terracotta planter, so this thing is not going to stay moist for more than a couple days, so this really helped get the job done. So you can propagate these houseplants pretty easily by stem cutting. I actually have an old video, and I'm a little embarrassed by it at this point, but where I propagated string of hearts just from stem cutting, which is totally easy and applicable to do. However, as your plants start to mature, you're going to notice all these little like tubers that form across the stems. They're these literal just like balls that look like potatoes that are forming across the stems that you're going to see form. They're all over my plant here, and those are the easiest places to propagate your string of hearts from. They are going to produce more growth than just cutting wood. So if you're looking to fill out your plant a lot more, maybe look to see if you have any tubers that you can propagate. Also, those tubers are going to form inside the planter. I have some really, like, these almost look like they could be harvested potatoes at this point. They're so big. And they are also going to put off new growth from that in the soil. So that's just how this plant is starting to fill itself out over time without me having to chop and prop constantly, which I have done once or twice admittedly, but this thing has really just filled out on its own over the past couple years. You do not need to worry whatsoever about your household temperature or humidity when it comes to Ceropegia. Honestly, as long as you give these enough sunlight and don't water them too much and use a well-draining soil mix, these will thrive. I cannot drive home that point enough. And another thing to love about these is that they are non-toxic to pets, according to the internet at least, so that is something that I really enjoy. And another thing to love about these even more is that they are very closely related to Hoya. So if you've been enjoying growing a couple Hoya in your home, maybe try out a Ceropegia. There's a bunch of different varieties. I would say the variegated version is probably one of my favorites because it just has some really nice pink coloration to it. It really shines in the light in the window. It's just a really excellent houseplant. A lot of variegated houseplants can be a little overrated per se, but I think this is an excellent houseplant, especially now that it's a lot easier to get your hands on. Back when I got my hands on it, this was not easy to get your hands on and was very expensive for what you would get. But nowadays it seems to have kind of fallen closer to its unvariegated cousin, so I appreciate that. I think I would also consider this to be somewhat of a gateway houseplant, I guess is how I want to put it, where if you are more into growing foliage houseplants and you try out a string of hearts, you might be more inclined to try out some succulent houseplants, and vice versa. If you're more of a succulent or cacti grower and you try a string of hearts, you might be more inclined to try some foliage houseplants. So just another thing to love about it. The heart-shaped foliage is really just such a great gimmick. Dare I call it a gimmick, because it's really to die for and just such an excellent inclusion to any home. So that's it for today's video, how to care for string of hearts, Ceropegia woodii, Variegata, linearis subspecies woodii variegata if you want to go crazy with it. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at phillyfoliage, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.